Welcome back, sixth graders. Today we're going to shift gears a little bit and focus on learning about Dakota and Ojibwe people. At our school we have a program called Why Treaties Matter, and that's here for this week. So I would like to introduce that to you. What is a treaty? Have you made a treaty? Chances are you have. A treaty is an agreement. Examples could be to text your mother each day after school, to clean up the dishes, to play with your brother, or to stop arguing with your brother at dinner. Nations make treaties with each other. It's a formal agreement between countries. The United States has made thousands of treaties. You can see the Library of Congress, if you'd like, treaties between nations around the world, including Native American nations within the United States. Here are a few examples of treaties. The Treaty of San Francisco in 1951 ended the war between the Allies and Japan after World War II. The Paris Peace Accords in 1973, America agreed to withdraw troops from Vietnam, ending the Vietnam War. The Paris Agreement in 2015 was an agreement to deal with greenhouse gases across the globe. Back a little further, in 1851, there's a treaty called the Treaty of Traverse des Sioux. Now here's a map of Minnesota, and you can see I circled this lower part of Minnesota. And this was an agreement between the Dakota people and the U.S. government that gave control of most of southern Minnesota to the U.S. government. In exchange, Dakota were to receive supplies and money and hunting rights. This was a time when many Europeans were moving into the United States, and the United States had an interest in gaining or growing its land, and it was owned by Native Americans. Now, with that Treaty of Traverse des Sioux, the U.S. government did not deliver promised food, supplies, and money, and thousands of Dakota ended up starving. This is a painting called the Treaty of Traverse des Sioux, which we'll study in more detail in a future chapter. Some treaties involved Dakota and Ojibwe people turning land over to the United States. So, for example, this is where the Dakota of Minnesota lived in the green. This yellow brownish area was where the Ojibwe lived, and over the course of about 100 years this land changed. Now you see the white section here. The white section is now owned by the U.S. government or the state of Minnesota. What's left would be reservations or land set aside for the Ojibwe. So a significant amount has changed, and then these tiny dots here are where Dakota. So interesting, here's the before Dakota land, after ... In the 1800s and 1900s, the U.S. government made significant effort to remove Dakota and Ojibwe from their reservation land. So even once the Ojibwe had these reservations, there's efforts to still remove them from their land. Not only that, Dakota and Ojibwe children were forcibly removed from their families and sent to boarding schools where they were forbidden from practicing their culture. Instead, they were to learn the culture of European Americans. Do you think they like that? Much has been done to strip Dakota and Ojibwe of their rights. Most Minnesotans have been unaware that treaties signed between the United States government and the Dakota and Ojibwe still actually exist. Examples of these rights are being able to govern their sovereign land, make decisions for the people's interest, hunt and fish on Minnesota land, and practice their culture as they choose, to just name a few. So there still are treaties that are in effect in Minnesota between the United States government and the Ojibwe and Dakota people. The Dakota people actually have 4 sovereign nations in Minnesota, and the Ojibwe have 11 sovereign nations. Ojibwe often refer to themselves as Anishinaabe. We are at the beginning of learning about the Dakota and Ojibwe people in Minnesota Studies. In fact, we have 4 units that will focus on this. And our next chapter is actually about the Ojibwe people and their culture. But today we're going to be learning about why treaties matter And there's a display upstairs that we're going to be looking at. And there's a lot of information there. And I don't expect you to memorize it all, but what I would like you to do is look and see what can you learn about treaties. And what is one thing you can go up there and report on that you understand and can share about the treaties for the Ojibwe and Dakota. What are some of the treaty rights Ojibwe and Dakota have? What are some of the agreements, perhaps? How did they arrive at these treaties? What is one thing you can come back and share about Ojibwe and Dakota treaties? And then we will continue our discussion after our visit upstairs. Have a great day, everybody. Talk to you later.